Bryce Givens. I'm the CEO of True North Recovery Services, and I'm also the president of All the Way Well, which is a local nonprofit here in Denver, Colorado.
Can you tell me about your own mental health journey?
Yeah, definitely. I've worked in the last really about 9 years kind of in this space just on my own journey. I'm a person in recovery myself, and so that's really what kind of catapulted me into this whole mental health field and just learning about myself and going through a bunch of different therapeutic endeavors. I, struggled with substance use disorder for the better part of, my teenage years and my early adult years. And fortunately was put into a position where I got sentenced by the courts to go to a behavioral modification rehab. And really that was my first access to therapy and trying to understand kind of my own personal psychology and my own mental health and the correlation between my own attitudes and emotions and behaviors and my belief systems and kind of how all of those things really coincide. So, yeah, I mean, mental health for me is something that I'm constantly working on, and trying to optimize and become the best version of myself that I can be. And so, it's been definitely a journey that I never had anticipated when I was younger. But it's honestly been the most beneficial thing that's happened to me in my life as it relates to my own personal self-esteem, self-love, my relationships, my partnerships, my business dealings, just how I show up in general. And so, yeah, mental health for me is core in what I do and the people that we help, and it's a blessing.
Yeah, with that, you do a lot. Can you tell me about all the companies?
Yeah, definitely. So I started kind of on this path really in 2021. During COVID, I had I'd gotten out of prison. I'd finished with the halfway house and was living with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. And I had two friends of mine who were really struggling, going in and out of treatment centers, going in and out of sober living. And being a former athlete, there was really nothing that catered to the sort of like structure and mentality that, we had developed through our early years in athletics and applied that same structure and accountability and structured regiment on a day-to-day basis in a sober living stance. And so I started to do a lot of research and understand kind of who the players were in the market, what kind of business models they had, what they were doing, and really just optimized that and just said, okay, well, I think there's a better way to reach more people and create more of an impact that leads to lasting results. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Like, I want to help people be successful in their own lives, whether that's um, staying sober all the way up to how do you self-actualize and reach that top tier of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, how do you reach fulfillment in your life and what gives you purpose in your life? So um started Elevate Recovery Homes in 2021, and have grown that business substantially to where we're at today. But once you uncover solutions in one area, it provides a whole slew of other opportunities and problems that you see in the industry and in the space for how to help people more. So that kind of was a catalyst into me starting a treatment center, which is called True North Recovery Services. So True North primarily focuses on, third wave CBT, individualized care to help men and women really uncover the aspects that led them to addiction in the first place. There's a lot of really good treatment providers out there, but one of the things that we focus a lot on is the somatic experience. So how does movement play a role in your recovery? So we focus a lot on what we've called active IOP. So we're an intensive outpatient program. Um, we focus a lot on active IOP. So we get all of our clients into group, and they actually work out for the first hour of group. And then they go into process after they're done with a tough workout. So your heart rate gets up, you get some endorphins going, you're struggling through the class with with the other clients, and then you go into process, and then you go into sort of the the therapeutic and clinical approaches to what we're doing. So that's True North, and then All the Way Well is a nonprofit, and All the Way Well primarily helps as it's a peer recovery services organization. And so we provide peer recovery coaching for hundreds of clients. We also are a giving foundation, so we support we provide financial assistance for clients that are looking to get into treatment and or get into supportive housing. And so that business model provides us with the opportunity to host events and have experiences for clients, and then also really just set them up for success, because the financial barrier for a lot of these folks is really what holds them back. So we're really happy with the growth that we've had in a short amount of time, but we have a big team now, and we're really growing as a business. But at the end of the day, like, we just had our all staff meeting a week and a half ago, and the key message and the key takeaway is, like, we're here to save lives.
Yeah.
And having alignment across our team and doing the best that we can on a day-to-day basis, respective of role, right? Everybody has their roles and their responsibilities and their duties and their the people that are managing them. But at the end of the day, like, it's really good to find alignment across the team to really be that person and be this system that can really help these people get their lives back together. So that's kind of a brief synopsis of the three different organizations. Elevates primarily focuses on sober living. True North focuses on the clinical and therapeutic aspects of recovery with licensed clinicians and what have you. And then All the Way Well is a financial organization that helps support people to get into sober living and treatment, and is also a peer recovery services org.
Yeah, with working with your team, what is it like working with people who believe in your mission?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's so fulfilling. 98, I think we only have one or two staff that aren't in recovery themselves. And so the nice part is like, we're working with people who have gone down this path already and are, constantly focused on their own mental health and their own relationships and their own, emotional regulation. And so it's really fulfilling to be able to work with a group of people who not only have experienced this themselves, but have realized that being of service is the most important thing that one can do. And so that gives us all purpose, and it's amazing to see, not only the personal improvement, but the professional improvement and development of our entire team collectively.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask something about confidence level. Do you see your clients or anyone you work with confidence level rise as they go through the process?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, 100%. Sometimes we have clients, and it's funny because, in this space, addiction does not discriminate. We have clients who are literally coming off the streets and have been homeless for the last, half decade, all the way up to college professors and CEOs. And so we have this wide range of demographics that come through our program in different phases, in different stages, obviously, but everybody has something to work on. And so it's so cool to see the progress that people make, and then get the feedback from those clients as well, and just the gratitude that they feel towards our program and towards individuals in our program for helping create the structure that they can then put the work in and find progress in their life. So I mean, that's super fulfilling. I love that. And yeah, we do a lot to not only track that in real time, right? Like through surveys, and the Recovery Capital Index is a good one, but then there's a lot of clinical surveys that we're constantly evaluating these clients and their progress and their well-being. So it's really good to not only keep track of it, in real time while they're going through the program, but then also extending that out until, we've had clients with us in our sober living for over 2 years, and so to see the progression of where they were when they started and then what they're doing now. We've had guys come in who just came out of detox, went through our program, did really well in our program, worked on that upward mobility, became house managers, took on leadership positions, and then have we've actually hired some of our clients, so now they're actually staff within the business. And then now to see them grow and develop families, like we have a staff member who just had baby twins, and a year and a half ago, he was just coming out of detox. And so it's amazing to see these guys and gals get their lives together and, really put the work in so that they can move forward and move past this past life that they had in a positive direction.
And with people in recovery, how important is it to have a support system?
I mean, it's the most important thing, in my opinion. I'm sure you've heard of Johan Hari and his TED Talk. The key point from the TED Talk that he had is, the antidote to addiction is connection, and that's pretty widely understood for sure. Now, there's nuance and intricacies to that, like how do you develop that connection, and that's really what our core focus is on, is building community. We're fortunate that we live here in Denver, Colorado. It's a very outdoorsy place. There's a lot of things that you can do. The weather's generally speaking very good. And so what we've done is we've tried to create community and connection through lifestyle traits, right? Like if somebody's into mountain biking or hiking or lifting weights, like I personally like to lift weights, or book club or chess club, finding some sort of purpose and finding a community that you can dive into, that you can be vulnerable with. That's really where people find their purpose. Working a job, all the kind of lower, sort of what I like to think of as like lower prerequisites, they're all very important to get to that place to where you can afford yourself the luxury to build a community. But we really try to ingrain that into our entire process. And so, I think we've done a good job of doing that, and that's been our primary and core focus. But yeah, community is everything. Connection is literally everything. Whether that be 12 step, or we're an all pathways program. So we don't, we're not very specifically focused on 12 step or, a religious based program or anything like that. Really, whatever your flavor is, that's awesome. We help you support that and try to improve that and, dial that in.
What do you do to help your own mental health?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, and that's ever changing. But I think I've gotten to a place in my life to where, I've learned the basics and I've learned the skills and the tools that create the most amount of value. I know you've probably heard of Pareto's principle, right? Where 80% of the outputs come from 20% of the inputs. So I've really focused on that 20% to be a baseline for myself. So it's things like getting adequate sleep. It's things like my nutrition. It's things like exercise. It's, relationships with my close group of friends. Like those key 3, 4 things right there make up 80% of my own mental health. And then it's, always ever changing to optimize that. How can I get, and, another percent here or feel better doing this? And, I've implemented a number of different strategies. I think meditation was a big one for me in the past. When I was in prison, I really got into Buddhism and really practiced meditation very consistently for multiple years. And I think that helped give me a framework and an understanding to really focus on who I wanted to become by proxy, right? The style of meditation that I did, it's, very observational based. But you gain a lot of insights from kind of slowing down, right? I don't meditate as much now, but I do have some other tools and skills that I've developed that I think I gain some of the same value from. So stuff like journaling, I try to journal a lot. Reading, I love to read. And so there's some of these other components that make up that sort of 20% that I'm always trying to kind of refine and optimize. But, you never get it right. It's a never ending, I don't even want to call it a battle because it's an opportunity, right? You can always start to figure out what works and continue to do the things that work and then drop the things that aren't working. So, but I'd say those are the core majority of things that I'm working on, right? It's eating good food, drinking clean water, surrounding myself with like-minded people, exercise, and sleep are the core main things. And then I have a 1-year-old daughter, and so that's been the biggest joy in my life. My wife and I, we're already very close. We're best friends. And just seeing the progression of our own relationship, having a child to care for has been the biggest joy in my life so far. And I find a lot of purpose around that.
What are some of the things you've learned from your wife?
Oh man. I mean, I think so many things. I'd say the first thing that came to mind that popped in my head is how good of a communicator she is. In my past, I wasn't as proficient as I am now at communicating. So just like, I mean, she's just got a knack for it. So she's what we call a normie, right? She's not she had never struggled with addiction or anything like that. She just chooses not to consume any substances. She doesn't drink. She doesn't do anything. So, um, early on in our relationship, she had just a real knack for how to communicate effectively. And so I've learned a lot on just how to communicate, not only with her and developing our relationship, but carrying that into the workplace and my friendships and how I show up for people. I'd say that's probably the number one thing if I had to pinpoint it. Um, but realistically, at the end of the day, like there's so many things that I'm learning from her continually and ongoing. How she shows up as a mother is just like incredible. And so becoming the best version of myself that I can be, definitely it relates on multiple facets, right? It's, how your home life experience, your work life experience, how you parent, how you continue your own progression. And so having her as a partner and being able to, have a confidant to talk through things and work on things has just been, again, I think the biggest joy in my life as well. Like her and my daughter are everything to me.
What would you say to anyone going through a tough time?
Oh man. I think I think my message would change depending on the circumstance. But generally speaking, um, discomfort is where you find growth. You can take an empathetic or sympathetic approach, and there's many different ways that you could respond. But that's what I would say. I think the thing that resonates the most with me is that the times in my life that were the hardest ended up being the most fruitful after getting through those times, right? Like the times where I really had to be resilient, ended up serving me in more ways than I could have imagined. So I would just say to somebody like, do what you need to do. You know what you need to do, right? Like ultimately at the end of the day, they might be confused with for a number of different reasons, but we know inherently like if we're on the right track or not. Listen to your intuition and dive into that. And of course, it's going to be challenging. It's going to be hard. It's going to be painful. It's not going to feel good. But on the other side of that discomfort is where you find the nuggets of truth and gold and um, happiness and success and joy and more pain because it's a never, it's a cycle. But I would say lean into the discomfort.
Where do you want to see your mission in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, that's a very loaded question. I think from a personal standpoint, I'm really trying to develop these businesses in an effective and efficient way so that I can support my team in the best way within my role. Um, and so that there's a lot of things personally that I am working on to help show up as the best leader that I can be, as the visionary of these organizations, and kind of stay in my lane. From a professional side of things, I'd say, we are growing, we are scaling, and I would like to expand to other markets. There's so many people that need help, and I obviously am biased, but the success rates that we've had and the progression that we've had just in the clientele that we've had over the last few years has been transformational. And so if I can help carry that on to other places and have some more exposure for other people. That's really where we're trying to go as an organization, as multiple organizations kind of under one umbrella.
Yeah, how can people reach out and learn more?
Yeah, there's a number of different ways. We have a marketing team who is now finally really starting to get this, kind of socials. They can reach out to us on socials. I think at Elevate Recovery Homes is our Instagram. True North Recovery Services and All the Way Well are both active channels as well. If they want to reach out to us and actually talk to us about treatment, they can reach out to us online on our websites. So we've got elevaterecoveryhomes.com, truenorthrecoveryservices.com, and allthewaywell.org. So if they want to learn more about any of the stuff that we're doing or how we do that, or look into our teams and any more detailed information, they can definitely go see us online.